So I just finished this week's episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and after it was all said and done, it kept reminding me of something, and I couldn't really picture what it was, but every time I saw these three in this episode wanting money and trying to figure out how to get rich quick, I was thinking, like, what does this remind me of? What the fuck does this remind me of? It reminds me of something I saw a very long time ago. And instantly, once I started thinking about it really deeply and I watched the episode once again, I'm like, wait a minute. This is very, very similar to Ed, and Eddy. Like, legit. Like, seriously. If you've ever watched that cartoon on Cartoon Network, if you've ever saw that series, you can instantly see how similar Ed and Eddy is to this episode of JoJo. And I'm like, of all things I never expected to see in JoJo, a fucking Ed and Eddy episode. Like, what? Like, what? Like, legit, the three characters in this episode are kind of like in the same type of persona as Ed and Eddy. I don't know if the mangaka was trying to go for that, trying to go for a similarity to Ed and Eddy. I have no idea. But let me point it out to you. So the new character introduced in this episode, I think his name is Shigichi, I think that's how you say his name. The new character that's introduced that has the stand ability that can like split up and harvest different things. This character is pretty much Eddy, I mean. It's pretty much fucking Eddy in Ed and Eddy. And then you have it to where Double D would be the one coming up with the plans. That would be fucking Josuke. And then you have the one that's kind of a little bit brain dead, which would be Ed, which was Okuyasu in this episode. I'm like, what in the fuck? Like, the characters we're seeing right now is just so interesting because they're pretty much like Ed and Eddy. Like, let me pop up with the similarities of the personality. You have the short one, Shigichi, that was introduced in this episode. He's the short, greedy one. That's Eddy from Ed and Eddy. Fucking exactly the same. And then on top of that, you have Double D Ed, that is one of the brains. Like, he's the brains of the operation that comes up with different things, which was Josuke in this episode. And as you know, Ed, he has a thing with his hair. He never wants anyone to see his actual hair. And look at Josuke, he always has something going on with his hair. When anyone makes fun of his hair, problems go down. So that's interesting, the similarities between Double D and fucking Josuke. And then if you look at Okuyasu, he's the one that's a little bit brain dead. He's the one that could easily, you go after or get lucky and get something done. And, he's just kind of one of those people that are not the smartest or brightest characters in the series. And so seeing these three characters having so much similarities to one of my favorite cartoon shows, it makes me happy. Now, Ed and Eddy was one of my personal favorites besides Dexter and also Courage the Cowardly Dog. And seeing a reference or something similar, I don't know if it was meant to be a reference, but whatever the case may be, just seeing something that reminds me of my childhood makes me so fucking happy. And I know not everybody's going to enjoy this episode. Instantly, I know for a fact not many people are going to like this episode because of the concept and what it's about. It's not really a action-packed episode. It's not about beating the shit out of each other. It's nothing like that. There's not even really a stand fight in this episode of JoJo. The main point of it is just these three kids trying to get together and trying to get rich. That's exactly what it was about. And I'm like, yo, like, this is really interesting. A very cool dynamic to JoJo. And I just love seeing how, like, the Eddy type rip-off character like Shigichi, of how he's wanting more money. He doesn't want to give any money. He wants it all to himself. I'm like, yo, that's freaking Eddy. That's fucking Eddy. And I was just laughing throughout this entire episode. I was like, yo, this is just so good. It's such an enjoyable episode. And it saddens me how I know many are probably not going to like this episode because it didn't have any action scenes. It was mainly just slice of life with trying to get rich. And I don't know, maybe it's because I got nostalgic and I just love seeing something that reminded me of Ed and Eddy. But just the entirety of this episode was fucking fantastic. And seeing how it ended off and it's not necessarily done yet, I'm also happy to see it carry over because Shigichi, he's a really cool character. I like his design. I wonder exactly what's going on with his, his head, but still, I like his design. I like his stand ability, and I do wonder if this, character that was introduced, is he going to be someone that's going to be a reoccurring character? Is he going to be a one-time villain? Or is, he going to turn into a villain, he's going to get defeated and then thrown out of the series? I'm kind of curious exactly what type of character he's going to be, but whatever the case may be, I enjoyed this episode to the fullest. It couldn't have been any better. I mean, as a person that grew up with Ed, and Eddy and watching, like, 1990 shows, and also watching that and Courage the Cowardly Dog, all these other shows, that was just something that made me happy to see. So, did anyone else think of that? Like, anyone else realize that it was kind of like Ed, and Eddy when watching this episode? Please tell me I'm not the only one. I don't want to feel like the only one that noticed those similarities, because there's just no way I can be. But, anyways, episode overall, fucking fantastic. It's a fantastic episode. Great voice acting, great animation and art, great music, great sound effects in general, and the opening song, I'm getting very addicted to it. Now, one thing I do want to talk about before I kind of end this video is that the character that was introduced in last week's episode, Kira, he didn't pop up in this episode, which is kind of strange. I expected, since, we had the introduction of the character and how he was most likely linked to the murders of the city, I thought he was going to be like one of the main important people of this upcoming arc, but apparently not. So I'm kind of shocked about that, but whatever the case may be, I still like the direction that this arc is taking, and I'm glad to see, Josuke actually having the spotlight for once, because out of all the JoJo's we have seen from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, he's the one that's really lacking in the terms of a lot of development and characterization department. I mean, you know what, I take that back. He does have a lot of characterization, but he just hasn't had as much development as other characters or other JoJo's we have seen, and mainly Koichi's had the main focus of Part 4, so I'm glad to see, Josuke having the spotlight in this episode or this arc, and getting to see him develop more. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.